Welcome to the Mi Camino series, where we explore the pathways of our faculty and staff at UC San Diego. Today we are here with Professor David Gonzalez and his family. Welcome everybody to Mi Camino.
Thank you for having us.
So David, will you please introduce your wonderful family to us?
Yes, so here to my left is my wife, Yolanda. Here, my son, Isaiah, my younger boy. My second older boy, David. His wife, my daughter-in-law, Mariah. And the joy of our life these days, my granddaughter, Elena.
Welcome everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here, for making time in your busy schedules. To start us off, David and Yolanda, how about you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, for example, where you grew up, where were your parents from, and what was the philosophy around education in your homes?
I'll let ladies go first.
Well, both my parents were born in Mexico, and we migrated over to Oceanside when my dad to join his family in Oceanside. So I pretty much grew up there since fourth grade, and education wasn't on the top of the list for us. As teenagers, my dad would just say, either you go to school, finish high school, or go to work. And so I, being a part of a family of 10, I started working at 16 while I was going through high school. I knew I did want to finish high school because my older sister didn't do it. My second sister, I loved the look of the cap and gown, and I thought it was something great to accomplish, so I wanted to follow that. My other sister didn't graduate, so I was excited. I was really excited to do what she did. But beyond that, it wasn't even a topic. College wasn't, I believe, a word that came out of my dad's mouth. He just wanted us to finish high school or go to work, but you can't just stay home. So I did that. I accomplished that. But being that work was kind of on top of college. I did think about it, but I didn't. It wasn't that important. What I needed is funds. So I went that route and I started working, and that was it.
That's a very real experience. You know, oftentimes our Latino families, money is needed, and college really is not an opportunity or not something that is chosen because we're all coming together, contributing to the family, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So thank you for doing that for your family.
Thank you.
And David?
Yeah, so I grew up in San Marcos, California, right where Cal State San Marcos sits. So my mom is from Texas, and my dad's from Mexico. And when my dad immigrated here in the late 60s, he landed right where Cal State San Marcos is. It's a chicken ranch. It used to be a chicken ranch. And then my mom, because of the Vietnam War, her brothers got drafted. They came to Camp Pendleton, but they all kind of landed on that chicken ranch. So that's, probably where I was conceived, right? Within that chicken ranch. And so we kind of started there, and then we moved in, stayed in San Marcos, and I went through the San Marcos elementary school district, the junior high there. And then I spent about, I would say 2 weeks at the high school. And it's really similar to what Yolanda's saying. In our house, it was more about, working, getting a job. So 2 weeks into high school, I decided it was more important for me to have money, to have a job. So I dropped out and just went to work until I was 20, and a little bit before meeting Yolanda. So that's basically it. Grew up in San Marcos, California, where my parents met at the chicken ranches. Education wasn't a big thing in the house. It was more about getting a job and getting to work. And but it was a great time. I had a great time growing up. It was a nice city in San Marcos, California. Yeah.
Wonderful. So something happened. What was the switch? Something led you to pursue higher education. What was that?
So it happened after we got married. When you hear these, you watch movies when people have, she was in labor at Tri-City Hospital, and still at the moment I never thought about going to school or nothing like this. But when I had the guy to your left here, David, something happened. I remember when he was born, something inside me, I want to almost say it was heavenly, maybe something out of this earth, off this earth, that spoke to me that day and really asked me, what type of father did I want to be? What type of leader did I want to be? What type of example I wanted to be? And something in me just thought, wow, maybe education is the way to go. And it was really jumped in head first into it. And it wasn't something that I planned or something that I thought I would be, 20 years in or 15 years in now. It was just something of trying to be a better person, a better leader to the family, and a better husband to Yolanda. And that's I felt education would take me there.
And Yolanda, do you remember how you and David met?
I was going to church in St. Patrick's in Carlsbad, and he represented the Catholic Church in San Marcos. So each year they would send a group of single people, that is, to this campground for a retreat. So it was a Thursday, 1992, I remember clearly. It was Thanksgiving, and we were sitting in a circle, and he caught my eye, and they introduced us, and it was I remember that day so clearly. From then on, we established a friendship, and it just moved on, and here we are, multiplied.
It's funny because perspective is everything, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, she says we were chosen, but I only went because I used to have a cousin who lived a block away from me, and she would come over religiously, like every month, and knock on the door and ask me to go to these, church retreats, something that I wasn't at all familiar with. And I remember just telling my mom, just lie to her, right? Tell her I'm not here. So she did for about like 3-4 times. And I remember like the 5th time, it was somewhat serendipitous that I met Yolanda. The 5th time, my mom, for some reason, maybe I caught her on a bad day or something, but that day she wouldn't lie for me. She says, you know what, you need to get up and be a man and tell your cousin yourself that you're not gonna go to these church retreats. And then I said, okay. So I got up, went to the door, and then I saw her face, right? So it was really hard for me to say no to her. So what I did, when I made an agreement with her, I said, okay, I'm gonna go to this retreat, but if I don't like it, don't ever ask. Like, you can't come over every month and ask me to go. I'm gonna go. And it was during Thanksgiving time, and so I went, and I thought it was gonna be different. I thought we were gonna be around the campfire, having like some, cocktails or something around the camp, roasting some hot dogs, but it was something completely different. And I remember for the first time I saw Yolanda was when I was on the bus still at St. Francis in Fallbrook, and I just saw this beautiful lady and this, young girl in this white scarf, and I just knew I had to talk to her. Yeah.
You remember the white scarf?
I remember
He
the white
remembers
scarf.
the white scarf. You see, Yolanda?
I'm surprised he went because it was all in Spanish. And
Yeah.
church talk is different from
Yeah,
street talk. So
right.
Well,
what you're doing there? I thought.
well, I thought we were gonna have, some, modelos around the fire and some hot
Right.
dogs. That's what I thought. It's different.
So out of the union of your love, you had 2 sons, and I'd like to have them take an opportunity to introduce themselves. So how about we start with you?
I'm Isaiah. I'm the youngest of us two, 25. Actually graduated from this institution that we're at now back in 2019. Pursuing medical school at the moment, but just working now at the moment, but trying to get into medical school.
And David, how about you introduce yourself to our audience?
So I'm David. I'm 26 years old. I'm currently a second-year PhD student at UC Riverside, studying biomedical sciences, and I'm a proud member of the Dr. Scott Pagan Lab. And I'm also a proud father and husband to my beautiful wife, Mariah and Elena.
And Mariah, how about you? Introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay, my name is Mariah. We live on campus at UC Riverside. We have been together for almost 7 years now. I currently work in the alterations department at David's Bridal.
You and your mother-in-law's experience were very similar. You were the powerful mujer supporting your husbands through university. Why don't you share a little bit about what that was like for you and how it was that you were able to support David in his journey through higher ed?
I've been working since I was 17, so that's something I'm used to, just working a full-time job. But since we've been together, I understood what he was taking on as far as pursuing a higher education, and I think that I understood as his partner and wife that, I needed to continue to work to be able to support our family and allow him to just solely focus on pursuing his PhD. And it definitely comes with its difficulties, having to, I guess in a sense, just put, my life on hold for a little bit while, I support him. But I'm so proud of him, and I'm more than happy to be, doing my role as his wife and, as the mother to our daughter.
So your daughter-in-law was talking about, Yolanda, your daughter-in-law was talking about, the decision to really help and be there for your husband, your partner. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what that was like for you. What was that experience? Because the reason we invited the whole family is that, we understand that in order for someone to succeed, there are people who are helping them through that process. And so we want to hear your story as well. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about that experience for you and what it was like. Both, the funny times, the challenging times, anything you want to share?
Yeah, I remember not having that conversation about school up until the kids were born. I remember he just came up to me and he offered for me to go, or he said, if not, then I could go. So I really appreciated that part that he included me in that, in that decision making. And so I was fascinated that he was thrilled about it. So it didn't take long from us having that conversation to him signing up for it. So it just, like literally, he thought about it. He approached me about it, and he just went for it. Again, he just dove in, and I remember how surprised I was that it just came out of nowhere, and so like he had said before, it started out kind of a little rough because the schedules and the work and what some responsibilities were more on my side. Drop off the kids, pick up the kids, and we had one car at one point, so we had to all jump in the car and go pick them up from school, or at nighttime. All these little things where the kids were already sleeping, and it was hard. Having to pick them up while they're sleeping, put them in the car seats, because they both had car seats at one point. But when he sets his mind to something, in this case especially important, I had no doubts about supporting his desire to do that, and it kind of made me love to work. To fulfill my duties with my employer, because I knew I was holding something special here.
And then I know, like David and I spoke before, and there was a lot of talk around the graduations. And I know David made a conscious choice not to attend his graduations. And so I'm wondering, as someone who was behind the scenes helping him, what are your aspirations? Like, were you able to see your sons graduate? I don't know the story about that.
When it came to his graduation, it wasn't like when you graduate from high school and that's your first step to the unknown, where you have your party and everyone's happy about it, and then you move on to finding yourself, your spot in the world. With him, the way he explained it to me, there's still a lot of work to do. He wasn't satisfied until he was. And he's not about like thrills and confetti all over the place for him, all the attention to him. He explained to me there are some steps that need to be taken before I get to celebrate that moment. So I learned a lot about having completed, a particular degree in regards to the kids. I didn't know if they would go on to further education. So for me, having witnessed him supporting them, that gave me a sense of peace, knowing that he didn't have that support from anywhere, pretty much. He didn't have that about calling somebody and getting some advice, some suggestions, anything. He pretty much was blessed. He has used that word quite a bit about encountering people in his life that have become blessings. Even our landlord back in the day. The rent was so low. We had a little teeny weeny house, but it was enough for us for that moment, for that purpose. Mm-hmm. And so without that, we would have had to, maybe move in with somebody. And the kind of people that we are, we prefer our own little space. Mm-hmm. So that was a treasure. That was a blessing. So I remember him. I get to go off the subject a bit, but there's so many things that come to mind right now, as far as having the blessing of him being around for them to have that support. It was just like I couldn't ask for anything else. I couldn't anything more. So I was really proud to have witnessed their completing their bachelor, and I was surprised when he wanted to continue, and then he wants to go to medical school. And for me, if they stop at this point, I'm really, really proud of them. If they want to continue, that's cherry on top,
I love your philosophy of I'm not done. So I think that's a great philosophy, and that philosophy has really gotten you to where you are, Dr. Gonzalez. So I would love if you would just take a few minutes to share a little bit about the research that you do. And you also had something very unique. This doesn't happen very often when we look at faculty across the academy, where you did your graduate work and your postdoc and then a faculty appointment all at the same institution. So
yeah, so I would say at heart I'm a biochemist. So there's this little world that we can't see, made of atoms and compounds, things that I've been teaching or trying to teach Elena about the atom.
That's me.
and yeah, so I'm very fascinated with that world, the world that we can't see. And that fascination kind of grew into trying to understand how that can impact health and disease, human health and disease. So my lab, it studies, broad sense, host microbe interactions. So how does a host, a human, an animal, interact with its environment? And we all know with the infectious diseases, with COVID, that's been so critical the last few years to try to understand how that's happening. So I guess broadly speaking, my lab itself is concentrated on host microbe interactions, but really from a biochemist perspective. And then that unique trajectory of staying here, and it does. I get that question a lot because it doesn't normally happen that much, but it was just really. I tell people it wasn't planned. It was more about just having so much fun doing science. And that's how I feel like even today, just 7 years in to the job, being a tenured professor, it's all about just having fun, doing science, being at the cutting edge of science, and it's kind of cool that they pay you to do this, right? So I think that was, people at UCSD saw that, they picked up on that, and I think the last year of my postdoc, who used to be the dean, Palmer Taylor, he approached me with a job, and he said that they would really like to keep me here at UC San Diego, if possible. Yeah.
When you and I spoke, you inspired me because you shared the story of how you had to really come up with something very unique for you in order to get tenure. And so you told me the little story about how you hopped on a plane and you...
I'll cut forward to it because, so basically when I was in negotiations with UCSD for a faculty position, I thought everything was going smooth. I thought everything was great, I'm gonna sign, no problems. But then that last meeting, when the contract was there, one of the professors said, well, look we're still kind of throwing this back and forth because you did do your PhD here. you did do your postdoc here, and we really want you to bring something new to the university. And I would say that was probably, did it hurt when I heard that? Yes, it absolutely hurt. I remember not crying because of, I was sad, but I was driving up the 5. I was tearing up because I was so mad that I couldn't believe that happened, right? That meeting went through. But that really challenged me. That really challenged me that day. And I said, okay, hold up. I said, I'm not a quitter. How can I respond to this? How can I bring something new to UCSD? So I started looking in my field, and it just happened that year in 2015, like probably one of the biggest breakthroughs in technology came through, and it happened at Harvard. And for some reason, and you can ask Yolanda, Yolanda said I was talking in my sleep and practicing what I was gonna say, but I came up with this idea that I was gonna go to Harvard. For me, it was easy. I'm gonna go to Harvard, I'm gonna take that technology, and I'm gonna bring it back to UC San Diego, and that's gonna be my niche here. And it actually, it kind of went just like I planned, somewhat, right? I took the red eye down to Boston. I talked to a professor, took the T for the first time down to the university. And then when I got there, he forgot. He forgot that I was going to show up. And, that all, again, it was a blessing in disguise. So he left me there with a postdoc and someone that really knew the technology well. So I stayed 3-4 days there with him in his lab. And then at the end, I was able to bring that technology, bring the postdoc, all the modifications that they did at Harvard back to UC San Diego. And that's been instrumental for success for my lab. So that's why I always tell people it's not me. It's really this kind of, I feel like I'm on this shuttle, and I'm just enjoying the ride. I'm still enjoying the ride.
And it appears like the passion rubbed off on Isaiah and David. And so, Isaiah, I know you are an alum of UC San Diego, so maybe you could tell us a little bit about your experience here at UC San Diego.
Yeah, of course. I think going in, a lot of this probably happens to a lot of UCSD students. You're the smartest kid in your class, and obviously with the background my dad gave us, I was going in pretty confident. I was one of those kids that never really had to study, just kind of winged it and did well in school. Going into college is pretty humbling, I feel like. First of all, you're on your own, you're away from your parents, and everything gets a lot harder. So I remember, kind of trying to adjust to both those things, like a new social circle, you're kind of in your bubble in high school, middle school, adjusting to that, and also adjusting to the accelerated pace. I remember one of the first classes I took here was chemistry honors. And I was like, yeah, I'll be fine. I've taken honors my whole life. And you were supposed to know Calc 2 or 3. I did not. I'd never taken Calc 2 or 3. So that was like a slap in the face. Wow, you really need to gear up. You need to learn how to be a student. So I figured that out, you kind of find your social circle. So, your brothers in arms, like my friends Nick and Jared, we were all just grinding together, studying, getting through those hardships together, becoming better friends, finding your social circle. So I feel like in the beginning it was a little difficult to adjust to at first. Obviously the foundation my father gave us helped out a lot. And as soon as I found my social circle and got adjusted to the college, accelerated academics, I feel like after that it was smooth sailing. I mean, once you find your place and you figure out how to be a student, I think once you apply yourself, you set a good schedule, and it was pretty smooth.
Thank you for sharing that story, because we hear that very often, especially from our first generation college-going students, which you're not. But I think it will help them normalize their experience, especially coming from you, who was well prepared with a father who has a PhD in STEM. Earlier you were saying that he was teaching the both of you
biology, chemistry. Yeah, it's weird because you have that foundation. My dad was teaching us when we were 5 or 6. Biology, chemistry. So everything had been so easy, and I thought, it should be easy going into college, right? It'll be much of the same thing. So it was pretty shocking, to it's everyone has struggles. That's what you learn, everyone struggles, and it's how you deal with that really defines you, So I think initially everyone's gonna struggle. So if anyone deals with that going into college, and you're not alone. You'll find that as you make friends and you find your circle and find your place.
Yeah, thank you. And David, maybe you could share a little bit about your experience.
Yeah, so as an undergrad at Cal State San Marcos and also a partial student at Miracosta College, I guess you could say I had your classic experience of someone who, wasn't the smartest person in the class, who had to, work super hard to get a C or a B. And I guess you could say, just for me, it was just, always an uphill battle. So my brother and I, it's funny, we talk about all the time how, I always saw him as this guy that, everything came easy to him. For me, it was like so difficult. We even in high school took a class together, AP biology. And without him, I probably wouldn't even have passed the class. But yeah, I mean, I would say that we had very different experiences. Of course, I had your classic Latino, life in terms of, being a young father and trying to balance, work and my family. And yeah, I mean, I as my brother said, when you come in as a freshman, you're exposed to so many things, and what you did previously maybe isn't going to work this time. So for me, as a person where nothing ever worked, I was always the one too stubborn to listen to my father. And in terms of, all the stuff that he tried to teach us, all the tools he tried to give us, I always fought it because I wanted to do things my way. And so as a person who wants to do things your own way, you have to troubleshoot by yourself. So going through college for me every year was a challenge, but I figured that, if I can do it my way, then I would be proud of what I did. And, like I said, year after year, I felt myself getting stronger, and, through the love and support of my family, I just felt that, hey, I belong here, and I can maybe be somebody in this field. So yeah, it's my experience.
I would argue and say he did listen to me. I would argue and say he did listen to me because
eventually, yeah. It's funny.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's funny because I think about my brothers and I's path, and obviously I went right after high school. I went to college, and I went to a 4-year, and I moved out, and college passed by like this. It's like in the blink of an eye, and I was always like move to the next step. But I've been met with a couple last years. I have to like improve my clinical experience. There's a lot of factors that go into like a medical school sentence. It's like sometimes it feels like a lottery, but I'm still trying, I'm still cracking at it. And David talks about his struggles, but I'm like, I look up to you, man. That's awesome that he's in PhD school. He's got a beautiful family. He seems pretty stable. So like I'm still trying to figure it out as the guy who had it all figured out. So it's funny hearing that because. I mean, just look at us now. Like David's doing it fantastic. So I look up to you, man. It's
appreciate it.
Beautiful to watch.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, yeah, I mean, it's similar to my father. My undergrad took an extended period of time. I think it was about 6 years, because there was a time after my first year where my interest for school declined. You could say it was due to having a family, or for me, it was more so just, as I mentioned, I want to do things my way. So if I don't think school is the right way to go, then maybe it's not. However, like I said, through counseling with my family and just really sitting down and trying to game plan what do I want to do with my life, I realized, I have all the tools and all the support. Why not try to give it another crack? So, like I said, my experience, I think a lot of people can relate to me in terms of, you don't feel like you're, I guess, you don't feel like you're supposed to be there. And maybe it was a fluke, maybe it was a lottery, right? Maybe it was a lottery, but I realized it's not, and you just got to find it within yourself. And like I said, having good people around you is key, because without them, there's no way. There's absolutely no way I would be here today.
Well, you're about to join a very rare group of people, because the literature shows that of 100 high school graduates who are Latino, 0.02% end up with a PhD. So keep up the good work.
Appreciate that.
And so David, I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about your undergraduate experience, and then also Like, did you notice that your sons had an aptitude for STEM, or were you like, my boys are gonna, nope, they're gonna kick ass in STEM? What was it?
They had no choice.
They had no choice.
I'll get there. I'll get there. But my undergrad experience was very, I would say, a journey of finding myself. I went in as a religious studies major. So I thought, I've always wondered, like, until I think this morning when I woke up like at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was wondering, like, what are we doing here in this, crazy world? And, so it's always been fascinating to me to understand more about like the spiritual part of life. So I declared a religious studies major. And then while Yolanda and I were juggling, I was playing Mr. Mom. She was, she was really the foundation. She was working full time, right, at the time. And I was shuttling back to the community colleges here in San Diego. And, during that time, it was kind of situational. I was trying to avoid STEM as much as I could. To rewind, I dropped out of school pretty much in 8th grade. So I didn't really had an 8th grade education when I was going to community college. So I was trying to run from STEM as much as I could. But then it just happened that this, taking care of the kids, Yolanda working, I had to take this chemistry class. and it all came down to, I remember coming home from the classes, great teachers a teacher can be so impactful, even someone you don't know, right? I didn't know this guy, his name was Don Robinson. He was a professor from Utah. He came down to Maricosta. And I just remember that first day when he started talking about chemistry, he went to the shelf and he took out a couple bottles and this little spoon and he started mixing things while he was going over the syllabus. And at the very end, when he went over the syllabus, he made a plastic. And for some reason, I thought that was just like the most amazing thing I had seen. And I started questioning myself, well, maybe understanding the macro world, this big reason why we're here is maybe ambitious, but maybe I can go down more to the micro world and start understanding things like atoms, things like that we talk about, right? and molecules, and maybe trying to understand life from that perspective. And that's kind of how it all started. And I caught the bug. So once I took my second STEM class, I was like, wow, this is easy. Why isn't it easy for everybody else? And it's because when you love something, right, it doesn't seem like work. And that's kind of how I fell in STEM. Just really good teachers, good professors that I ran into. Really blessed to do that. When your wife's working and you have to take care of the kids and try to study at the same time, you find strategies, right? And my strategy was, I'm gonna print out 1,000 math problems. So I'm gonna wake up when she leaves, like at 6. We're all gonna wake up together. They're gonna do 2 hours of math. I'm gonna study, and then when they're done, they get to eat, right? And I remember one of my classmates thought I was crazy because she's like a psychology major. She's like, "What are you doing to your kids?" And I'm like, "Well, things that I have to do, right?" No. I think they had no choice to get into where the STEM field. But I mean, I'm proud of what I did because although David fought it for a bit, I know he still was listening. This thing about doing it his way. That's what he says, but I know he was listening. He's here, right?
Right now, yeah.
Yeah.
So Isaiah and David, your father was saying how he had to be clever when it came to child rearing, and he would print out math problems for you all to do. So maybe you could share a little bit about what was it like growing up with a father who was also in university working towards a PhD, was studying STEM. How did that impact you?
I think you can't really appreciate it until you actually do it. So when I finally got into college and was in like the study grind and all the responsibilities you had, I didn't really appreciate it till I thought then, I was like, wow, what if I had kids at this point? I had kids to take care of. So I thinking that was hard, getting adjusted freshman year. And on top of that, having children would be, to me, crazy. And, understanding that my dad, worked very hard to help raise us, to make us men, basically. Now I'm very appreciative, but back then, my mother and my father worked so hard. I just grew up, I was happy. I had not much to worry about. I just wanted to play baseball and do well in my studies and make my dad proud, And I figured I'll just do what my dad tells me, and, if I get these math problems right, I'll get to eat. but it was crazy in retrospect, how hard they worked, because I had a happy childhood, we're low income, and we had a lot of blessings, like my mom and dad say. But as a kid, obviously you're in a pretty blind to like the realities of the world, I was very happy. So I my parents to thank for that. They worked very hard.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. I mean, going back to our humble days, on Madison Street, my parents did a really good job of kind of keeping the details of what had to be done for us to, live our lives. They did a really good job at doing that. So, like I said, my brother and I were just always happy. We played baseball. We did our thing. We went through our few hours of torture with with the packets. But yeah, I mean, I didn't fully appreciate or understand, the magnitude of what was going on until, I got to the PhD level, to be honest. I mean, like most things, I would just kind of show up, give it my best effort, and go from there. But, when I would sit down and I think about, my brother said, like, how did my dad do this with 2 children? How did my mom, have the sanity to sit through all of that, right? So, yeah, it's truly amazing, and I think I can speak for all of us. We're all thankful to God and the powers that be. So, yeah.
And so you're getting your PhD at the University of California, Riverside. And what is going to be the focus of your research and your dissertation?
Yeah, so right now I'm in Dr. Scott Pagan's laboratory in the School of Medicine Research Building. And to give you a broad spectrum, we study infectious diseases and mechanisms of infection at the protein level. So that's kind of where my project comes in, is I'm trying to understand, how does this virus infect the host through this particular protein, and how can we understand this better, and through this understanding can we develop a therapeutic? So that's essentially what my research entails, and I was very blessed to have a great mentor. As my dad said, like, behind any great student is a great mentor. And that person is Dr. Scott Pagan, and he's opened my eyes up to lots of things that I need to work on. However, he's shown me my own strengths, and just having confidence in myself, and also planning, making sure every move that I make is calculated. And I think having someone like that, in my life is huge, because, the PhD can last, an X amount of years, and you can kind of drift away into this gray area. However, if you have this, if you have good support, good mentor, he kind of keeps you anchored. And so that's kind of who Dr. Scott is for me. And the research that we do is super interesting. And it's pretty amazing that we have collaborators at the CDC, with the DoD as well. So having, the government kind of, connection, and also just kind of having research at that level is truly a blessing.
Maybe you could share, because I think most of our listeners, our videos are always targeted towards, first-gen prospective students. And maybe you could share a little bit that when it comes to getting a PhD, you actually get paid to get it. Can you share a little bit about how that works for our listeners?
Yeah, of course. So, if you go through any, PhD program website on any given university, they'll have all the details there for you, how much you could get paid per year. In most cases, you only have to pay for the application fee. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it made sense, right? So, and especially, having that kind of financial support is huge, because, you're so engulfed in the research, and, trying to, balance your life as well. And, definitely having that financial compensation makes things a little bit easier, lightens the burden for sure. And yeah, I mean, I always tell people too, it's never a bad idea to keep that option there, for pursuing a PhD, because, there are grants that are paying for your degree, and you get paid on top of that. So, like the pros would definitely outweigh the cons, right? So, yeah, I mean, for me and like a lot of people that I know, it was a no-brainer for sure. Mm-hmm.
And Mariah, what was it like when you first met David and you met his family? I mean, I imagine you find out his dad's a PhD researcher, and what was that like? Like, did you imagine, oh, we're gonna all get together and talk about mitosis, or were you like, gosh, I hope not,
When we first started dating, I don't think I really understood what his dad did, or even what David was trying to pursue. I think he was in his freshman year of college when we met, so I think he was still trying to figure it out too, like what path of science he wanted to go into. But he didn't talk about it all that much, and I remember asking him what his parents did, and for work, and he goes, "Oh, my dad works in the science department at UCSD," and that was it. So that's just very vague. It wasn't till I sat down with his dad and he explained, what a day-to-day looks like, or that's when I understood the scope of his work and stuff like that. And yeah, they were very welcoming when I first met them. But now, fast forward all these years, I think it's amazing from coming into the family and seeing the legacy that he's created for his boys, and now what David and Isaiah are going into, and it's really something amazing.
I wonder, Mariah, what do you aspire for a career in STEM for your daughter, or?
I think it would be really cool to see a third generation, STEM student. What I want for her in terms of education, of course, I would love for her to pursue a higher education, just like her dad and her uncle and her grandfather. But at the end of the day, I just want her to be happy in whatever she chooses to do in life.
Yeah, totally.
Elena's thinking, when am I going to get a question?
Yeah.
Is that what you're thinking, Elena? Yes?
And actually, Elena, the next question was for you. What do you think your tata does for a living?
He is a scientist.
He's a scientist. And what do scientists do?
They do experiments.
They do experiments. And do you think you want to be a scientist when you get older? Like Tata and Daddy?
Yes.
Yes.
You do experiments too, remember? What do you do?
I mix colors up to see what it makes.
Nice.
And she has goggles and she has a white robe. Oh, lab coat, huh?
I'm the little scientist. These are the two big scientists.
They're the big scientist and you're the little scientist. That's great. Can we talk a little bit about the plans for the future? Where do you see your research going? What do you have on the horizon?
It's actually an amazing time right now. And for myself, my lab is, and I'm not bragging, because I've been in valleys. My lab has been low in funding, but right now I'm on a very high hill. I think I have something like 8 or 9 grants right now. So my lab is extremely well funded. And 7 years in, we're starting to, with the technology that we borrowed from Harvard, right? We're starting to find a lot of interesting findings in a lot of diverse fields. So for example, we're studying gut and the microbiome, how do all those microbes in your gut affect your health? And we have a couple patents here at UCSD. We also are pursuing a vaccine for strep. So strep throat, close to 1 billion people a year get strep throat worldwide, and there's no vaccine available. So I'm at somewhat of a crossroads right now in my career at UCSD, where I've done all this amazing science that's funded my lab, but now there's also this avenue potentially to begin starting a company. And that's kind of where I'm at right now, and how much effort I want to put towards that, and how much effort UCSD will let me put towards that too is a question. Yeah, but I see my science, my lab, it's on the upward trajectory. It was hard to get there, and I don't think we're done. I think we're going to continue moving, upward. And the question is, where to? Is it more about academic science, or is it going to push towards more a, industry, biotech type of science?
To close, I would love to hear from each of you, a little bit different, but for you, I'd like for you, Isaiah, to share maybe a memory, your fondest memory of being an alum from UC San Diego.
I'd say just kind of sharing the struggle with people, in your classes and your majors. That was my fondest memories are studying for organic chemistry at midnight in the lecture halls, study rooms at midnight. Just 2 Monsters energy drinks down, just rapid fire trying to teach everyone OChem, the night before the test. Because you wake up every day and you kind of have something to look forward to. You know your struggle, you have to do, and it was like clear cut, so, kind of getting through that struggle, the classes with your friends, your friend group, like going through all those, all the hardships together was, obviously it was difficult at the time, but looking back on it, I look back on it fondly,
Thank you for sharing that. Yolanda, I was wondering if you might share a memory that stands out for you really significantly with your support of David, like where you essentially feel like I was there for him, I helped him, maybe something that stands out very uniquely.
The partnership that we've had for 26 years, I used to think marriage was 50-50, and I realized that there's no number. Sometimes you gotta do 80, and sometimes you gotta do 20. And it was just a learning, patience, and appreciation for me for him, and appreciating the opportunity given to our family via his desire, to open this door through education and not even knowing where it was leading to. So that travel has been really amazing. I remember going through the hard times financially, and then, of course, as a wife, you're like, ay. Then he was, well, I could stop right now after my bachelor's and go on to get a job. I said, no, I don't want to be the one to stop you. It'd be an obstacle, in this path. So I remember having the same conversation after the master's, and then and he again pointed everything out to me, and he had no problem in stopping because he listened to me, he heard me. So again, I said, no, I don't want to be that person. So we just keep going. People asking, when is he going to graduate? As you mentioned, it took a while, but I saw the hard work. I saw the long nights. I saw him getting up really early, and again, develop this respect I have for that, person who desires, who wishes, who decides I'm going to take that path. And I know it's not an easy one, sleepless nights, and I have learned to respect that. And so, of course, I'm really proud of him and the path he's taken.
You use the word respect, and when you were telling a story earlier, you said how David said to you, you can go to college or I can go to college. Mm-hmm. And I bet at that moment you were like, I married a good guy. Mm-hmm. Right? So I'm wondering, throughout the journey, you said, it's sometimes you think it's 50-50, but I'm sure there were times where David showed up to support you through mm-hmm. the process. Well, maybe you can share a little bit about that.
Well, he would, again, listen to me, hear me out. The thing is, sometimes, you can't go out there and confide in everyone. But again, because of that partnership that we developed, part of that was him listening to me, and just me listening to myself say it out loud, kind of made it better, and hearing his suggestions and walking through every scenario, we're like, nope, and going back to wherever we were at that moment, that it made me think that we were okay, we were going to make it. So his support in that listening, being there for me, not just dismissing, what I felt. That part was really important to me.
Thank you. And David Jr., so you're in your PhD program, and I would love for you, what advice would you give to a young scholar who, is going through, you said it took you about 6 years to get through your undergraduate experience. What advice would you have for a young scholar who's listening to this video right now?
I would just say to be strong, resilient, and do whatever it takes to not let that fire within yourself go out. Because once it's out, it's very, very difficult to pick yourself back up. And like I said, the foundation to success for me is your family. You know, me, I'm a spiritual person, so God. And also, like I said, just good people, you know, good friends, family friends, people that can anchor you. So the advice I would give is to just understand that you be grateful for the things you do have and fight for those things. So, as I mentioned, keeping the same energy every day, making sure that you don't let one bad day discourage you, one bad week, 2 weeks, because that is the PhD. Is, you know, it's a profession of failure, and being okay with that. So my advice, again, would be have confidence within yourself, be resilient, and to also remember that you're in a profession of failure. So it's okay to be down some days, and some days you're going to be up. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Thank you. Mariah, there are probably some young couples who are together listening to this video. And what advice would you give a young couple who is going through the educational journey together?
Be patient with each other above all else. And communicate. I mean, communicate everything, even if it's something little, you know, the good things, you know, the good days. Communicate, you know, that you're grateful for each other, you know, for each other's support, just remind each other. And the bad days too, just communicate. I think even if it's something small, even if it's just, you know, you're just overwhelmed, either, you know, the person that's pursuing the higher education, the person that's, you know, working, I think just communication is key to keeping a healthy relationship, a healthy marriage, especially, you know, in this situation where David's pursuing his PhD.
Thank you. And David, I'm wondering what advice would you give to, again, very similar to the question I asked your son, what advice would you give to scholars who are listening to this, who are contemplating going to a four-year university?
Yeah, I mean, I would say pursue something that you love. It doesn't have to be science. For me, it just happened to be science, and for the boys, it just happened to be they had no choice, right? So, but I would say pursue something that you really like doing, because someone that's 20 years ahead of those, you know, undergrads in their career, it just feels so good, and so it doesn't feel like a job when you can wake up and you're just happy to go to work. And you know, Yolanda, she still asks me like, "Why do you get up at 5 a.m. to go to work? Like you don't clock in." It's just that when I wake up, I'm just so excited to come to UCSD. I'm so excited to come to my lab, to interact with my students, to help them, to mentor them. So an undergrad, I would tell them, try to pave the way. And the general curriculum kind of tries to do that, but try to find something you love. For a PhD, it's a different, you know, be ready. You know, be ready because as David says, it is a field of failure. It is a huge, huge, steep hill to climb. And I would say be ready to bring that fire to try to finish. And I think probably most important for the PhD, as David also talked about, is make sure you surround yourself and you pick a good mentor, someone that's going to be supportive, someone that's going to help you through the ups and downs of for sure you'll encounter during a PhD.
Can I redo mine? I just thought of because I was like
Sure.
thinking about fun things, like just drive, like because I used to commute with my dad, my second and fourth year, to a UCSD, and I'd wake up. He wakes up early, really early. So coincidentally, I woke up early, and it didn't matter if I had class at 1. I was waking up at 5 every day. So obviously, you know, I would be pretty tired. We'd go into the car, and every time my dad I would try to sleep in the car, and he would just blast Thunderstruck by AC/DC. Like it was a joke.
Song.
It is a great song. We'd go to the same Angelo's on Coast Highway for like the whole year. And I mentioned earlier, you know, the struggles of college, and obviously that's a fond memory, but I have to mention the fact that my dad and I for 2 years just commuted to and from UCSD together. It was just, I get to share my day with them, you know, and it brought us closer together. Even if he, like had to, like if he stayed late, I stayed late. If I had to stay late, he stayed late. And it also, I feel like it helped me with my studies too, because even again, if I had class at 12, I had a 4-hour early start of my day, so I had 4 hours to, like grind things out that I needed to plan my day. It kept me sharp, keeping hours with the same hours as a professor. But that was actually probably my fondest memory of college, is commuting with my dad to and from school. It was very fun. I down on my, I remember being sad about, I thought I did bad on a final, and my dad, I thought he would console me on the way home. He's like, "You got what you earned." I'm looking for someone to tell me it's okay, Isaiah, you got what you earned. And I went home and I said, you know what? He's right. I got what I earned. So those are honestly my fondest memories of college, just commuting with my dad to and from. Brought us super close together, and I will never ever forget Thunderstruck by AC/DC. It was
Wow.
I still have yet to listen to it.
That's a great story. I'm glad you shared that. I'm curious because I wonder if, because I think about myself, I wonder if, did you ever ask Dad for help when you were having difficulty, or were you like, nah, Dad's gonna give me a hard time, I'll just figure this out? Or
I think, okay, obviously, I mean, if I was gonna ask for help, I think he gave us all the support we needed, whether it was, emotionally. Like, I had the foundations. I think he knows that I know what I need to do. It's just a matter of execution, as far as like getting through school stuff. Emotional, of course, is my father, my mother is there as well, my brother, and any like academic hardship or financial, obviously they're there, but specifically academic, I know I had the tools. Like I was given to them at a young age. I just have to learn how to use them and apply that and find what works for me. So he's always been there. My family's my guiding light. My foundation. I know that I always have them as a support system. So with that in mind, I can go into things confidently.
Nice. And Dad, were you asking about grades, or did you just kind of let them be?
No, I mean, I knew both David and Isaiah. I had them on a pretty tight regiment. I knew they knew their stuff. I mean, they were doing organic chemistry when they were like 6 and studying biology when they were 7. So I knew they had the tools. The question was more about, are they going to use them? And I think the story is Isaiah probably followed that path that I paved out for him. David said, well, I'm going to try my own kind of path. But I think they're both similar paths, right? So I was 100% confident that they were ready. I mean, I spent thousands and thousands of hours with them, just like I have with Elena. And so I knew it was there. It was more of a question is, are they going to decide to walk down this road, or are they going to decide a different road? But prepared they were, for sure.
Well, thank you, Gonzalez family, for being here today and sharing your story. We really appreciate it.